أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد الحمد لله والشكر لله. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we praise Him, we glorify His name subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask Him to send blessings and salutations and peace and mercy and tranquility upon the best of creation, our Master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and all of the Prophets alayhi wa sallam jami'an, and the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and his family and his folk and his followers, his al, until the final hour, Ameen. Alhamdulillah wa shukrulillah that Allah Ta'ala has gathered us together for Jum'ah, that Allah Ta'ala has honored us with this opportunity to worship Him, to glorify His name subhanahu wa ta'ala, to exalt His blessed name subhanahu wa ta'ala, to make remembrance of Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, to inculcate in our hearts an orientation and directionality towards Him and His good pleasure subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the bab of the rida of Allah, through the door of the good pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the Prophet himself sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and his way and his sunnah and his approach and his character and his ethics and his entire person sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That at the heart of this affair is taqwa. At the heart of this affair is taqwa. And taqwa, as we know from the many khutbahs that we've heard, the enjoining to taqwa has to do with protection. It comes from a root word wiqaya, which is protection or shielding. That taqwa is for the believer to shield himself or herself from anything that is offensive or displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is taqwa. And taqwa is the very mantra of belief. This is the mantra of the believers. This is the way forward for the believers. And this, according to Allah Himself in the Quran, is the libas of the believer, the garment of the believer. وَلِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. And the garment, the clothing of taqwa, that is superior. That, ذَلِكَ. Allah Ta'ala does not say هَذَا خَيْرٌ. هَذَا is for something close. ذَلِكَ, because it's as if, from the rhetoric of the Arabic language, something so lofty that you have to point at it from far. ذَلِكَ, way up there, this maqam, this high maqam is khair, is superior. And in this light, one of our early masters, Mansur ibn Ammar, he says that أحسن لباس العبد التواضع والانكسار وأحسن لباس العارفين التقوى قال الله تعالى ولباس التقوى ذلك خير. Mansur ibn Ammar, he says, the very best garment for the slave, the very best garment for the servant is a tawadu' wal inkisar, is humility, seeing yourself as less than others. Seeing yourself as less than others. Tawadu' is the opposite of kibr. Kibr is to see yourself as better than others. A tawadu' wal inkisar, and being broken. A state of brokenness, inkisar, a state of lowliness in front of the divine majesty and extending to the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the best garment for the servant, because if we're servants, we recognize Allah's majesty. Nothing special of our own. All specialness belongs to Allah. All greatness belongs to Allah. All merit and glory, alhamd, praise, belongs to Allah. Lillah, alhamdulillah, from the first ayah of the Fatiha itself. And then he continues, وَأَحْسَنْ لِبَاسِ الْعَارِفِينَ, but the best garment for those that know Allah, which is a higher and more universal level. Ubudiyah is on the way to ma'rifah. Servanthood is on the way to knowing Allah experientially, recognizing Him in the creation, subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the creation is but His action. The creation is but His action. And so when you see the action, you recognize the actor, the one who is behind it, subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأَحْسَنْ لِبَاسَ الْعَارِفِينَ, and the best garment of those that know Allah, at-taqwa. This is the best. And this is why Allah Ta'ala mentions it as libasul taqwa, ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. It's better. It's always better. And this encompasses every good. Tawadu and inkisar are particulars of the universal of taqwa. Taqwa manifests in many arenas, in many modes in the life of the believer. But amongst the most salient of them is a tawadu wal inkisar. Amongst the most salient of them is being humbled in front of others, firstly in front of Allah, and secondly in front of the creation of Allah, fellow man, and inkisar, brokenness. But it's all from taqwa. It's all from taqwa. And so this is also at the essence of shukr. This is also at the essence of shukr. Gratitude is ultimately a sense of lowliness before Allah. Gratitude is ultimately a sense of lowliness before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, Prophet Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him. Imam Ghazali relates in the Ihya that Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, Allah ta'ala revealed to him, إِذَا أَنْعَمْتُ عَلَيْكَ بِنِعْمَةٍ, whenever I bless you with a blessing, فَاسْتَقْبِلْهَا بِالْإِسْتِكَانَةِ, then receive it with lowliness. Then receive it with lowliness. وَتَمِّمْهَا عَلَيْكَ, and if you do that, I will complete it for you. If you do that, I will complete it for you. The attitude of the believer towards blessings is almost a type of shock. Why did Allah Ta'ala grant me this? There's nothing in me there's nothing that I can see in me that's worthy of this. There's nothing that I can ascertain in my own action or my own states that's worthy of these blessings. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah. إِذَا أَنْعَمْتُ عَلَيْكَ بِنِعْمَةٍ, when I grant you a blessing, فَاسْتَقْبِلْهَا بِالْإِسْتِكَانَةِ, receive it with lowliness. Receive it with a sense of undeservedness. Undeservedness. Going back to the original statement of Mansur ibn Ammar, وَأَحْسَنْ لِبَاسَ الْعَبْدِ التَّوَاضُعُ وَالْإِنْكِسَارِ. The best garment of the servant is humility and brokenness. This is in front of blessings as well as with trials. Trials break us either way. One of the wisdoms of the trial is it pushes us to this state, despite ourselves. But the believer is in this state even when there's no trial, even when it's the trial of blessings. And this is why the trial of blessings is sometimes a more difficult trial, because blessings tend to delude us, making us think that we have some special reason. Wealthy people often think that there's some merit that they have by which they deserve their wealth. And yes, many people of wealth worked very hard to attain that wealth, but many people in poverty are working just as hard, if not harder, but Allah Ta'ala does not decree wealth for them. And so that can't be the only reason. And we know from our theology, the only reason is it's an implication of the name Ar-Razzaq. This is our aqidah. Any wealth or any benefit in the world is an implication of the name Ar-Razzaq. And this is the test of the wealthy. And we see it in our society. We see how deluded wealthy people can become, and how egocentric wealthy people can become, and how egomaniacal wealthy people can become. Sometimes it's all over the discourse. It's just right in front of us. But the attitude of the believer is not just to note vice in the world, it's to have introspection. Do I have any of this? When you see an arrogant, wealthy person, you should look inside. Do I have any of this? For not just wealth, but any blessing. Am I deluded because of the blessings? According to this narration in the Ihya al-Madin, Hazrat Isa alayhi salam was taught, receive it with brokenness, receive it with humility, receive it with the state of lowliness. The believer reads the world so as to improve his or her state. Never just tune in for your own shahwa. Don't tune in into the latest happenings in the world just to know what's happening. Always root it back into some level, some avenue of increasing your taqwa. Always return to introspection. Always return to introspection. And so when I bless you with the blessing, receive it with humility. Imam Junaid, when he was asked about shukr, he says, "Ash-shukr an nafsaka ahlan lin-ni'ma. Ash-shukr an la tara nafsaka ahlan lin-ni'ma." Gratitude is that you don't see yourself as worthy of the blessing. Again, lowliness in front of Allah. Realizing your servanthood. Realizing your servanthood. Realizing your lowliness before the Divine, subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا تَوَاضَعَ أَحَدٌ لِلَّهِ إِلَّا رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ. And one of the secrets, see, everyone wants to be great. The nature of the nafs, of the psyche, is it wants to elevate. This is human nature. The secret of prophetic teaching is that it directs us to the only way of ascendancy. The prophets came to teach us the only way that we can rise, which is through lowering ourselves for Allah. That's the irony of the world. The lower you go for the sake of Allah, the more humble you become, the more broken you are for the sake of Allah, the higher you are. This is the secret of the prophetic teaching. One of the secrets of the prophetic teaching. And so, ash-shukr, an la tara nafsaka ahla lin-ni'ma, is that you don't see yourself worthy of the blessing. And when you're in that state of lowliness, of brokenness, of humbleness, then you're malleable. Like clay, when it's soft, it can be molded. And when you're malleable, then you'll conform to the divine hukm. Then you'll conform to the hukm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What prevents the person from doing what they're supposed to do? From obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It's the arrogance. It's that sense of, even me? Abu Jahl wasn't submitting. Why? Even me? I can understand the low people of society, but even me? This applies to me as well. And so the izzah is in ta'ah. The dignity and the triumph, the rising, the ascendancy of the believer is in obedience. One of our early salaf, Ibrahim ibn Adham, used to make the dua. Kana ammatu du'ahi. The majority of his dua. Allahumma nqulni min dhulli ma'siyatik ila izzi ta'atik. Oh Allah, transfer me, move me from the dhul, the humiliation and abasement of disobedience to you, of disobeying you, to the triumph and glory of obeying you. To the triumph and glory of obeying you. And this too is from shukr. Because another time Imam Junaid was asked about shukr, and he says, "Anna yu'sallahu bi ni'amihi." "Anna yu'sallahu bi ni'amihi." Imam Junaid another time was asked about shukr, and he says, "Anna yu'sallahu bi ni'amihi." Is that Allah is not disobeyed with those very blessings? Is that Allah is not disobeyed, subhanahu wa ta'ala, by those very blessings? Allah gives us 2 eyes, sight. Ask people that have lost their sight how much what they would give for even an hour, let alone a day, let alone a month, let alone a year, let alone a lifetime of vision. And when we see something that we shouldn't look at, how quick are we to turning for the sake of Allah? How adept are we at lowering our gaze for the sake of Allah? Listening to things that are foul, seeing things that are foul, all of these blessings. Allah yu'sallahu bi ni'amihi, Imam Junaid said another time about gratitude. And this time he said it when he was 7 years old. He was in a halaqah at the age of 7, and all the adults were there. And his khal, his maternal uncle, who was also his Shaykh, Sari al-Saqati, asked the majlis, he asked the gathering, who can tell me what shukr is? And none of them were able to put forth a sound definition. They were thinking, what really is shukr? And the young boy, 7 years old, says, "Allah yu'sallahu bi ni'amihi," that Allah is not disobeyed with the very blessings that He gives. At 7 years old. What's the state of our young people? What's the state of our 17-year-olds? Let alone 7. Are they even thinking about ultimate reality? Are they even thinking about what's the point of all of this? What's the point of life? What's the purpose? This is a perennial question from time immemorial. Every philosopher, every thinker, every sage has pondered this question. Why? Why? What's the point? What's the purpose? And why this way? And why not that way? What's the answer? Who Allah? The answer, who Allah? He is Allah. That's a sufficient answer. That's a sufficient answer. One of the philosophers had a principle, he called it the principle of sufficient reason. He said everything has to have a sufficient reason as to why it exists, and why it exists the way it exists. And you won't ever find the answer to that question unless you go to ultimate reality, al-haq. It'll always be, but why? But why? If you keep on going, sabab to sabab, because of this material cause, because of this material cause, because of this why that way? Why that way? Until you have to end at wajibul wujud, the necessarily existent, al-haq, the ultimate reality, subhanahu wa ta'ala. The answer to the perennial question is who Allah, because He is Allah. And that's sufficient. That's sufficient. Nothing else is sufficient. Subhanallah. And so recognizing our young people, we need to teach them, we need to teach ourselves the point of everything. Your purpose is not simply to amass wealth. Amass wealth for the sake of Allah. Your purpose is not simply to amass popularity. Amass popularity for the sake of Allah, so you can have clout to do good. Your purpose is not simply to just live and eat and procreate. Do those things for the sake of Allah. So it's an investment for your eternal abode, your everlasting abode. Make your life a series and concatenation of baqiyatus salihat, of immortal good deeds. Be prophetic. This is the answer for our young people. Be prophetic. Rise up to above the mundane aspects of this world. It'll disappoint you. That's another thing. Right now, look, I recently heard that it's mandatory now. Someone can correct me if it's wrong. Someone was telling me they visited the doctor. It's mandatory now for the physician to ask the patient, no matter what they're coming in for, some questions about depression. It's because it's turning into such an epidemic, they have to ask everyone questions about depression. And there are certain some people have physiological reasons, they need medical treatment, we're not denying that. But many people, it's because they don't understand the ultimate point. And that's depressing. If you're stuck in dunya and that's all you know, I guarantee you'll be depressed. Dunya will disappoint you. Dunya will depress you. Dunya will drag you. Dunya will drug you. Dunya will demote you. Dunya will do everything wrong to you. It's very oppressive. It's very oppressive if your heart's attached to it. And so, rise up. Rise up. Ibn Ata'ala says, Al-Anwar mataya al-qulub al-asrar. Al-Anwar mataya al-qulub al-asrar. Spiritual lights are the riding vehicles for hearts and secrets. Light from Allah is the way we ascend. Light from Allah is the way we transcend. Light from Allah is the way we see reality, something of reality beyond the mundane. And then we can have a fruitful life. And then we can be prophetic. And then we can effect serious social change. Then we can effect serious political change for the good of people, to help people. Until we inculcate real light and real gratitude and real taqwa and real ascendancy beyond the vicissitudes of our egotistical natures, only then will our social service and our political work to better the state of people have illumined effect. Have illumined effect. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفر الله إن الله غفور رحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. And continuing then on this principle of shukr that must inform the way we are. Our days and our nights have to be rooted in shukr. There's plenty of reasons why we have anxiety. There's plenty of causes of why we have anxiety. There's plenty of causes of why we have fear. This is part of the human experience, and particularly in our time for our community. But we cannot abandon shukr because of anxiety. We cannot forget gratitude because of our fears. Only through shukr, only through gratitude and taqwa and this illumination will we be able to have the wherewithal to stand up and do what's necessary, to do what's right, to do what's prophetic and ethical. This is the source of spiritual energy, is gratitude to Allah. Gratitude to Allah. And so in that light, another description of gratitude, Ruwayb ibn Ahmad, a contemporary of Imam Junayd, says, Ash-shukr istifrāg al-taqa. Ash-shukr istifrāg al-taqa. Gratitude is to exhaust yourself of energy. Gratitude is to exhaust yourself of energy. وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ. Allah Ta'ala says, and how few of my servants are really grateful. How few of my servants are really grateful. Where is the real effort? And alhamdulillah, there are plenty of beautiful projects that we are engaged in as a community. And we're not denying or belittling that. But everyone, every single person and every single believer has immense potential. And each and every one of us, and I don't say it as if I'm standing looking down upon you, a'udhu billah. Collectively, each and every one of us, without exception, has the potential of immense greatness. There's so much light that each of us can emit. There's so much light that, and in times of darkness, and in times of it, and the darkness of those anxieties and fears, it's a time for heroes. It's a time for heroes to rise up. We need prophetic heroes, and each and every one of us can be a prophetic hero by tapping into that potential and genuinely, seriously asking ourselves, what can I do? What can I do to project some light? What can I do to emit some light? What can I do? Ask yourself, and I need to ask myself. And when we find that thing, when we tap into it through contemplation, through deliberation, looking at the talents and the opportunities that Allah Ta'ala has given, and each and every one of us has unique talents and opportunities, for us to tap into that and genuinely ask ourselves, then out of gratitude we should seek that and exhaust ourselves of energy. This is a time where everyone needs to be exhausted by the end of the day, by the end of the week, serving something to represent the Prophet ﷺ. At some capacity. And don't think it has to be something grand. It doesn't need a Facebook post with 10,000 followers or likes or whatever it is. It doesn't need to be retweeted 2,000 times. Don't get stuck in the mundaneness of dunya. Those things are means and there's nothing wrong with those things. But seek Allah. Seek Allah. Do it for Allah's good pleasure. And even if no one sees it, Allah sees it. And Allah is Nur as-samawati wal-ard. He illuminates the whole cosmos. It's sufficient to please Allah. It's sufficient to please Allah. Don't get stuck in like, what's the point? The point is Allah. The sufficient reason, as we mentioned, is who Allah. He is Allah. Do it for Allah. Tap into your potential for the sake of Allah. The Prophet said ﷺ in the authentic hadith, لا تحقرن شيئا من المعروف ولو أن تلقى أخاك بوجه طلق أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. In Sahih Muslim, do not belittle a single iota of good. Do not belittle a single iota of good, of ma'ruf, even if it's meeting your brother with a cheerful countenance. Because your cheerful countenance, Allah, and if it's done out of shukr to Allah, even when you're tired, even when you're stressed, even when you're under anxiety, even when you have your fears, even when you have your tests, you have the courage and the strength to smile, just to do the sunnah. For the sake of Allah, Allah can use that and transform unimaginable. Maybe that person will be so uplifted and recognize the light of Allah in that, and the light of the Prophet in that, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that they will become the next Imam Zayd Shakir, that they will become the next Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, that they will become the next Dr. Umar Farooq Abdullah. You don't know the power of the sunnah when you do it for Allah's sake, let alone the reward in the akhirah. Let alone the reward in the akhirah. So ash-shukr istifrag al-taqa, each and every one of us needs to tap deep into our potential, into our talents, into our opportunities, and seek to emit this light. And it's as much anxiety as the world might give you, that much more do we need to do this. That much more do each and every one need to do this. But we can't get deluded by what's the worldly effect of this? What's the worldly effect of this? Do I have enough social capital to make a difference? If you have enough spiritual capital, it'll make all the difference. And we're not denying or neglecting the need for social capital, but it must be rooted in spiritual capital. And we'll end with this hadith. Hakim relates in the Mustadrak, authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that he said, ﷺ, Man aada awliya Allah faqad baraz Allah bil muharaba. Whoever shows animosity to the beloveds of Allah has challenged Allah to direct combat. In other words, Allah defends His loved ones. They don't even have to do anything. Anyone that tries to harm a saint will find tribulation in their life. Man aada awliya Allah faqad baraz Allah bil muharaba. And this is a spiritual, metaphysical thing. It means that Allah will send tribulation to them. This is not related to violence in any way, but Allah defends the ones that He loves. The hadith continues. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبْ الْأَبْرَارِ الْأَتْقِيَاءِ الْأَخْفِيَاءِ. And verily Allah loves. And what's the relationship between this second statement and the first one in this single hadith of the Prophet ﷺ? Is the way to walaya is to become beloved of Allah. So the questioner is thinking, how do I become beloved? So the Prophet gives attributes, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبْ answers the question that comes to the mind. Al-abrar, people that do every good. Again, exhausting themselves, trying to emit this light. The al-bir al-khair kulluhu. Bir is every single good, every opportunity to do something for the sake of Allah. That's the first description. The second one, al-atqiya, what we started with, restraining the people that restrain themselves from what's vile and what's harmful and what's demonic and what's unethical and what's unprophetic. Al-atqiya. The third one, al-akhfiya, the social nobodies, the unknowns, the hidden ones.